Mikey, hey
Hey
man,
Ollie.
how are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Ollie. Yeah, good.
You good? And how's everything going? You're back now in Devon, and
Yeah, back in Devon. Sort of coming to the end of summer holidays and recalibrating, and sort of looking forward to a winter ahead of filmmaking and big waves. So really excited.
nice. And have you managed to get some time off after all the craziness of
Yeah,
Savage Waters? And
yeah. I sort of down tools, and I took 7 weeks off. So it was really necessary time. Just spend time with the family. I got two young kids, and it was really nice. We did a road trip through Europe, through France and Spain, camping, and just try to kind
nice.
of go a little bit off grid. And it was a really necessary, amazing time. Really, really fun summer. I haven't actually had a holiday like that. I can't even remember when. So it was good.
Cool, man. Then did you do the coastal route? Did you kind of like hug like that way from like France and Spain, or?
Yeah, we did the coastal route with a little detour inland to the Dordogne to go visit some friends that are living there,
No, nice.
and swim in some rivers and stuff like that. But mostly
Yeah,
just
cool.
coastal. I'm getting my kids. They're 5.5, and it was really a summer spent like sort of pushing them into tiny little waves and getting their kind of water confidence up. So it was really fun.
That's cool. I've got a 5-year-old boy, and I was kind of doing the same thing. So it's just sort of like, I think I scared him with skateboarding. I was trying to like too early, kind of like, come on, jump on the skateboard. So I was like, oh, just petrified of doing that with surfing. So I was like, swim a little bit more, try and encourage him, and without being that pushy dad kind of thing.
It's
Uh,
easy, it's an easy trap to fall into, and I did the
yeah,
same. I had to like kind of like take the pressure off. I realized I was becoming like soccer dad, and I was
yeah,
like, no, no, they're gonna hate it. They're gonna hate you. Just we'll get on the beach. I'll take some stuff to float around on. If they want to go, they go. If they don't, they don't. I'm
yeah.
not gonna push it too much, but I do get excited when they like want to catch a few waves. So it's
Yeah.
fun.
Nice, cool, man. And how are you feeling about Savage Waters? I mean, after Docklands and everything, and yeah, how's it been?
It's been amazing. It's been well, it's a little bit surreal to be honest. I mean, even I guess even getting to the point of finishing the film felt surreal because it was a long journey. We started filming in 2016. We started talking about the film in 2015. So you eventually get to the end of the process. What we finished in 2022. So that's 6 years or something, and it's a really surreal feeling because there was actually so many points along the way where the project could have died in the water, but
Yeah,
for whatever reason it doesn't. And we had a huge blessing with Ghislaine from Whipped Sea, a French production company, just came on board and just really took the reins and got us to the finish line. And so you get there and you're like, whoa, like did that all just happen? And then the film actually another journey starts. So you get to the finishing the film, and then you've got this baby, and then you're like, then you give birth to the world, and then it's like this whole other process. And now we the film's out to be going to film festivals, and you're bouncing it off audiences, and there's a whole nother level of things going on there. It's like showing it to people, and how are people gonna pick up on what the story you're trying to say, and does it make sense, and all these things. But it's been doing really well, and I feel so well, just honored and grateful and that people are enjoying it. And just Lane's doing an amazing job, like, of getting it in front of the right people at the right time. And the whole film festival thing is it's an absolute minefield, and
yeah,
it's a lot of admin. It's not easy. And it's my first film as a director, as a feature film director. My first full movie, and it's Lane's first film as a producer, her own movie. She's been involved in other projects, but this is her baby as well. And so we sort of treading this path together, and she's just been phenomenal, just a total powerhouse, and just every day just coming with these ideas like, let's do this and do that, and getting it in front of the right people. So if it wasn't for her, this film wouldn't exist, and we would not be having this chat right now. So yeah, I
yeah.
feel amazingly lucky and blessed that it's all happened the way it has.
Awesome. And I mean, how it started off was pretty much like almost like a modern day treasure hunt, so to speak, right? I mean, when you say like when Matt Knight when he was introduced to the book, and yeah, I don't know if you could kind of give us give us your kind of overview of what of how it started, I guess.
Yeah. So Matt Knight, who's the sort of our protagonist, he's I would say he's the main character really. Him and his wife Suzanne. Matt was given a book by one of his old sailing buddies. Matt's been a lifelong sailor, so Matt's, I think, I don't want to get this wrong, I'd say he's either 60 or close to it. But Matt's been sailing and been around the ocean since he was like a tiny kid, and so sailing and sort of ocean adventures in his blood. It's in his like DNA. And anyway, he's got a core group of guys that he was sailing tall ships with back when he was in his 20s. And they were like a family, like a brotherhood of sailors. And they were sailing on these amazing tall ships in the old traditional style of tall riggers sailing. And they just had this they built these bonds that are, they're still best friends today. And one of these guys is this amazing guy called Shebs, one of his sailing friends. And we were actually off shooting another project. I was with Cotty and Matt on another project. And it was during this time that his buddy Shebs gave him a book, which was a treasure hunter's journal published in around about 1891 or 1892. And the reason Shebs gave him the book is because the author of the book had the same surname. His name was E.F. Knight. So Shebs saw this book, it was E.F. Knight, and said, oh, yeah, gave it to Matt. Like, hey, this guy's got the same surname as you, coincidence. And it's a cool treasure hunt story. And in the original book of E.F. Knight, it's E.F. Knight's story about heading off into the Atlantic to go search for treasure, that he had been told about treasure on these islands, and he goes off to go find it. So Matt's reading this book, and it's like, wow, this is like an amazing treasure hunt story written in that time, and it's like an incredible story. But there's this one passage where E.F. Knight is describing this wave. They're picking their way through these islands, trying to avoid getting smashed on the rocks. And he's coming around these reefs, and they come around a corner, and he sees a wave, and he gives this description. It's so beautiful. It like takes a couple of pages, and he describes this wave, and it's just like the way he describes it. Any surfer will hear that and go, he's talking about a barrel. He's talking about like the crystal cathedral and the way the light shines through it. And Matt's sitting there as a surfer, just going, that's like a perfect wave. And also the location he's describing is very remote and very, hard to get to and all these things. So Matt's a person who's drawn to a challenge, and, he's like getting excited about this vision of this wave. He's getting excited about the idea that it's out in the world. And he's getting even more excited about the fact that it's like a needle in the haystack, but it's like, that's just red rag to a bull for Matt. And it was actually Suzanne, his wife, who read first the passage, and it immediately sparked her interest. Then Matt read the passage, and Suzanne just said to Matt, like, did you read that bit about the wave? And they were like, whoa, I read that. And in typical Knight fashion, it was an almost instant decision. Like, we have to go look for that. Coincidence, fate put that sort of information in front of us, and then they just started hatching a plan. And because I was with Matt at the time, like we were working on something else, he was like, "Whoa, I've just read this passage," and like suddenly the next thing we like sitting up late at night hatching plans and looking at maps, and the next thing it's like, let's go.
And did he know anyone that's ever been there? Because it's like, I mean, Salvage Islands, right? It's kind of, would you say it's like situated between the Canaries and
Madeira?
Like Madeira, yeah. And like how,
yeah.
like
once we'd started poking around, because we used Madeira as a base camp, that's the nearest place as a jump off point to get to the Salvage Islands. And so once we're in Madeira, we started hearing of a few like Madeiran fishermen that had been there, and I felt like we were always hearing these rumors of somebody that knew somebody who had maybe been there, but we never actually spoke to that person. And then we'd like, oh no, this person, and we'd always like just miss that person. We go like racing off to some like bar or something, and then no, that person's just left. And there was rumors of people being there, but we never met them. So it's not a place. It's really hard to get to. It's a 24-hour sail. It's dangerous. It's so dangerous that nobody's actually taken the time to say where all the rocks are. And that's the problem there. It's just these rocks in the middle of this massive, expansive ocean. And it's so dangerous that all they say on the charts for this for charts there is don't go here. It's just, they just draw a line around the whole place and just say avoid. Like, there's no reason to go here. Just give it space. because it's too dangerous to go there and work out where all the rocks are. And now we're asking, and Matt's saying, well, we should go there. We should go there when the waves are going to be really big. It's like, it's just totally counterintuitive.
How did you feel about that? Because you're like, then dragged along. You got to document everything, and
from a look, I've got so much faith in Matt's skippering ability. So like my default, firstly, I know I'm in good hands. Secondly, also, you know that it's sketchy, but I also know that this is why no one's been there, and it's a good story. So you're kind of torn between, like, there's a level of anxiety or uncertainty about what we're doing. And actually, I didn't even realize when we started the kind of risks we were taking. It was only afterwards when you start really doing it. And then we had a few situations that we came a little bit close to the edge of, comfort. And then you realize, ooh, okay, this stuff carries risks. Like, the ocean can be unpredictable. And when you're that far away, the weather changes very quickly. And and generally when you're at sea and, in big sea and stuff, you want to avoid anything you can crash into. And so we're doing the exact opposite. We're heading into a cluster of rocks in big seas. It's, I don't know anyone. I don't know any sailors who would do that. And because Matt's a surfer, he knows what a surfer needs. You got to be close to these things. You got to see them in different conditions. There's no point going there when it's flat, because unless you're just scoping it out, which we kind of did the first time. But you want to be there when the conditions all come together. So it takes a unique kind of person who can take all these little bits of variables and put into a bit of an equation and go, well, let's go, and assess the risk and pull it off.
Yeah. And it's fun in that window, because I mean, when you've got the surfers that you had on board, like Croyde, he's kind of he wants to go there when it's massive, and obviously, like, if they're going to surf these big waves, it's like, how can they get it at, when it could be its best potential? And
it's really tough. I mean, anyone who knows surfing understands that it's all about, you said it there, windows. Waves aren't there all the time, and it's all about just finding that window of time when all those elements line up. So the swell's at the right direction, the wind's at the right direction, you're there, you can actually be there. There's just, and sometimes those windows might be 1 or 2 hours in a whole season.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you factor in the fact you're doing it by boat, so often now with a lot of surf adventures, people fly in and fly out. They're called strike missions. So with modern forecasting, you can be quite precise, and you can plan your logistics around very short windows. And Ireland's a place where you have to be very dialed into your logistics, because the window of opportunity is short, but you've got the benefit of being able to fly in, rent a car. You can plan it quite precisely. A boat is a whole nother story. You're not going anywhere quickly. Like, so. Yeah. So it massively complicates your whole logistics. And often, well, pretty much every time conditions are good for surfing, they're not good for sailing, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. So you have to plan your logistics around getting there. So you're looking for your sailing windows and your surfing windows, and hopefully they marry up. So it's really complicated. And, Matt's often just surrounded by like screens of different forecasts and wind charts and pressure systems, like, just making sense of it all and just planning. It's like, looking at conveyor belts of wind and okay, we're going to go travel north on that. Then we're going to jump off there. This looks like it might develop. And it's like moving freeways. And then you got to, like, snakes and ladders of like wind systems. And then and hopefully, but the snakes and ladders board's moving. And then hopefully it gets you to your surf destination when the waves are at the right time and you get out safely. And usually big waves are around a storm. So it's just, it's complicated. It's really complicated. But it all makes good story.
Yeah. And how is it from a creative standpoint? Because you're really good friends with these guys, and you have been for years, even before you even started the project, right? So, and then like looking at that and sort of kind of being their mate, being on the ship. I mean, how was it? Would you say it made things easier, or it kind of did it have its own challenges as well?
A bit of both, but more often than not, it makes things easier because I know we've got a good level of trust and respect and all those things, and I get a level of access that maybe some other people wouldn't get. I can you can read them a bit I can read them a bit, and they might open up and be honest about, or just the certain amount of defenses can be down because I'm a mate, but I'm also holding a camera, so you can capture things. And so I'm always riding that fine line between being a documentary filmmaker and being a friend. Sometimes you just got to be a friend, and sometimes you just got to be there to capture a moment, even if it's maybe a little bit uncomfortable. And that's hard, but we also all adults. We all know we've signed up to a documentary process, and I want to do that job as well as best I can. And sometimes that involves asking a difficult question or being involved in a scene that's maybe difficult, and it's easy to skirt around that stuff but like I say, I always want to kind of go, not shy away from those sort of situations. Even if it's your friend, you kind of want to get to the heart of things. So and it's tough because what these guys are doing carries risks, and so it's obvious you're going to start asking questions like they're all parents, they're all children of somebody else, or parents, or things like that. And so it's natural. There's some big questions are going to come up around motivations. And Coty has had some amazingly horrific injuries, but he's still there, riding massive waves and doing it. And and his parents have to see that, and you really wonder, like, okay, well, it's my job as a documentary filmmaker to ask the questions on behalf of the audience and see what the sort of how people sort of balance it out for themselves. And so but I think overall it's better, it gives me an advantage being a friend, but it does it definitely does have its challenges too. Sometimes you got to be able to separate the roles a bit in your mind, or ask the questions first and then give a hug later.
And it was initially, wasn't it just supposed to be like a 3-month project that you guys were going to kind of do, and then that sort of things changed pretty rapidly, right?
Things changed super rapidly. We'd given ourselves 3 months initially for the first round of filming, and I've done a lot of work for like action sports brands in the past, and a lot of it has been just sort of more like along the lines of 10-15 minute films, and it's really action focused, a little bit of storytelling, but a lot of action. The focus is on the action, and I never knew where Savage Waters was going to go, and I had no idea what kind of film we would end up making, but I assumed it was going to be kind of similar to what I'd been doing. But it just sort of snowballed, and we got to the end of our initial 3-month period, and we were so far away from like finding any treasure in terms of the wave, and we'd run out of money and run out of time, and then all these things started happening in people's lives, and I won't give too much away because I'd like people to watch the film, but things started happening in the personal lives of the Knights and Coty, and at the time, my initial thought was, well, this isn't part of the film, and I didn't even want to put pressure. I didn't want to talk about the film to them, because I didn't want to add pressure. They were dealing with real life stuff. So our little like flip and surf films, was like on the shelf, like that was priority B. And I just had baby, so I was also kind of focused on, this new transition in my life, and so the film project sort of went a little bit. It just kind of went a bit. We were in the doldrums on the film project, but it didn't really matter. It did matter, but we were just like, okay, there's more important things right now to focus on. And then it was, fast forward a couple of years, and it was when Ghislaine came on board. Ghislaine, it just through sheer fate and, good fortune and all the lucky stars that she stumbled upon the project and was really keen to just sort of pick it up and sort of blow life into it again, and really just sort of lit a fire under it. We just pulled everything off the shelf, dusted off, and went, okay, well, actually, let's. And everybody had gone through their personal journeys and their things that they were dealing with, and so everybody by that stage was at a new phase of coming out of those issues, and we could all suddenly go, hey, like, let's finish that, and we were all, it was just lucky timing. That it all sort of happened around that time when Ghislaine and Whipsy, the company, came on board and just went, okay, let's finish that. It's an amazing story and we should do it. And so she took the reins and sort of, pushed it for 2 years, dragged it, pushed it, kicked it over the finish line. So yeah, it was an amazing stroke of luck.
Yeah. And now here we are. It's kind of getting shown around film festivals all over the world. And
so excited. I mean, I can't believe we actually finished it. Well, I got to. I wouldn't have been able to do it by myself. And there's, you know, wasn't just Ghislaine. There was she had, you know, an amazing idea to bring two special people on board. One is Nick Guttridge, a story consultant,
Mm-hmm.
who was invaluable. And I'd never even heard about a role of a story consultant. And so I was like, okay, well, this sounds good. And, you know, Ghislaine and Nick had met at a film festival and got on really well. And so Nick came on board, and his role is to sort of help you find your story in your story. So Nick's
he's a non-surfer as well, isn't he? So he kind of like sees it from this that whole outside perspective, and yeah,
he's a non-surfer, and he's an amazingly gifted storyteller. He's a good director. He's an amazing director in his own right and producer. So he can come in and just be really cold about things that I can't be, because these are my friends, and I've shot it. So I'm kind of emotionally attached to everything. But when you end up with 600 hours of footage or more, you can't be emotionally attached to all of it. There's just no space.
It's too much. Yeah.
So you need somebody like to be brutal. You need somebody to come in with a sledgehammer and just go, this stuff that you think's important is not important. And I feel like it was initially, I was like, whoa, okay, it's like, okay, like I'm trusting you with my baby. But I realized super quickly, like, you know, my baby's in amazing hands, and you know, what Nick brought to the whole process was just invaluable. And then the other person who's just incredible is Jordan Montmany, our editor. And Jordan came on board. I sort of lost track. I think he edited for about maybe 9 months or something. Mm-hmm. We had got to the point of like a very rough cut, which wasn't even a rough cut actually. It was just like a skeletal scene, like potential breakdown, which myself and my assistant Gemma had been working on. But it gave Jordan a start point to see what we, you know, a bit of a bird's eye view of what we had shot and a rough idea of what he had to work with. And you know, Jordan was just amazing. He just, you know, the way he was same sort of mind as Nick, just a really brilliant storyteller and really experienced and so calm and collected, and just, you know, and you know, I'd say most of the success of Savage Waters would be between, you know, it's Nick and Jordan. Like I could sit back, we'd have these weekly or 2 weekly catch-ups with, you know, Ghislaine, Nick, Jordan, and myself, and I grew to love those because we'd all bounce these ideas, like this is where it's going. Jordan would show us what he's working on, and then we'd fire off each other creatively. We would like, there'd be debate, there'd be like, nah, and usually I would like have this idea or something, and then, you know, and I realized very quickly that if Nick and Jordan agreed, it's the right way to go. Like, yeah, you know, their combined experience, you know, was just really invaluable in the project. And so for me, it was like an amazing collaboration. I've never had that collaborative experience before, and now I'm like, I don't think I'll be able to work without it. Right? Yeah, you realize, like, you know, if you combine like all these computers, you know, people's brains and their experience, and it can be done in a way that's collaborative, but also, you know, trusting and everything said in a respectful way, you end up with a much better end product. And so, like, I love the process. I love bouncing around ideas. Ghislaine would come with ideas. I would come with ideas. They'd come with ideas, and we would kind of discuss, and then they were going for hours, and then, you know, then we'd walk away, and then Jordan would work, and then come back and be like, whoa, okay. It was really exciting. It was really cool.
Nice, man. And whose idea was it to get the voice narration done, and specifically getting Charles Dance on board? And
well, that was Nick,
which is just it was amazing. Like like having him like reading out, like, yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean that was incredible. Actually, no, I'd say so. It was Nick threw the Charles Dance card, and was it Nick or was it Ghislaine? No, Nick threw the card on the table of like, hey, we should get somebody, you know, who carries a little bit of like celebrity weight, you know. And I think it was Ghislaine. He said, I've got a contact, or maybe it mentioned Charles Dance. Basically, at around the time we were discussing voiceover, we sort of started looking, and I was looking on these agency websites, like voiceover agencies' website, and we're obviously always bound by money. You know, finance is a big thing, and so, you know, I was really thinking like, you know, the thought of getting anybody like even at all in the sort of celebrity kind of ranks was just not even on my mind. And I was like, well, you know, I was about to commit to going with like Donnie from Manchester. It sounded cool. And then, I think it was Nick who just sort of started throwing out some big names and was like, well, just take a gamble. You never know. Just send them something, send them a teaser. They might like it. Like, what's there to lose, And I was like, oh, okay. And yeah, like I said, I can't remember exactly who the first person who was who threw Charles Dance's name on, but as soon as I heard his voice, I was like, that's the voice. Like,
it just clicked.
It just clicked. Like, I had or every other name just sort of dropped away, and I was just like, for me, it just sounded so perfect. Just these sort of, that timbre and that resonance and that gravitas that his voice carries. And, and we had a bit of a discussion about the fact that the original captain, E.F. Knight, who, Charles Dance is reading the chapters of the book. So it should be it's the voice of E.F. Knight. And we were like, well, E.F. Knight was probably quite a lot younger than Charles Dance, but I was prepared to kind of like, roll with the artistic license, that it could be this older voice, just because it's, it just sounded like it carried weight, and I love the voice. So we basically begged him to come and help us, which he eventually did.
Nice one. And how did this all begin? Like, kind of going before making documentaries, growing up over in Cape Town. Like, how did you get into filmmaking?
So I started off working as a camera assistant on feature films. It's a film production is a huge industry in South Africa, where I'm from, and a lot of my friends are involved in various different roles and departments and stuff. And I got back from traveling or something, and I was always interested in working on film sets, but not really from a creative point of view. More just it just seemed like a big old adventure. Every time I speak to my friends who were working, they were like, I've just done this or I've just done that. They were traveling, and they were quite young at the time, and they would just seem to be living the life. And no 2 days were the same. And it just seemed like at the time I was just into, it just seemed like a really exciting industry to be in. So I sort of borrowed my way into the industry as a camera assistant. So I started off as unpaid. I did my first film as a trainee. I didn't get money, but I met a really amazing group of filmmakers that were super busy, camera operators and stuff, and I basically just slipstreamed them. They did like 5 movies back to back, and they took me along. So
nice.
And they were doing all the big films in South Africa at that time period. So I went from like big feature to big feature, and it was the best sort of training in that industry. They were really good, and but it wasn't creative. As a camera assistant, you're kind of just keeping the technical side of the show running. Yeah. My official title was clapper loader, so I was actually in charge of putting the film in the camera in the magazines which go on the camera, and then taking the magazines into a darkroom, taking the film out, putting them in cans, and getting them to the darkroom to the processing lab at the end of the day. So it's quite a daunting job to get thrown into, because you suddenly got the film in your hands, and any mistakes that happen in the darkroom are really costly. You can really cost the production a load of money if you make any mistakes. So that's why it's a tough camera department. Is a tough one to get into. Nobody wants to hire you without experience, but without experience you don't get hired. So it's a catch-22. The only way I could get in was say, hey, I'll do it for free. And so it's like, oh, okay, you idiot.
Well, come on, hand up and try to.
Yeah, and I did a course to a camera, it's called the clapper loaders course, to learn the basics of how to do it. But it's like a 2-week crash course. And actually, a film was about to start in Cape Town, and the producer from the film got hold of the guy who ran the course and said, we've got space for a trainee. Can you recommend someone from the course? And I just finished the course, and he put my name forward, and I was like, I'll do it. And they're like, okay, but there's one caveat. There's no money. And I was like, I'll just do it. Like, it was a movie. It was a way. They're going to cover all my costs. I was just like, I'll just go and do it. But then once I got that experience, I was like kind of up and away.
Nice.
So I did it. I think it was about 5 years in total. And then got a little bit over the whole, sort of wore me down. I wasn't surfing, needed a break. It's really demanding, like job lifestyle in South Africa. You shoot 6 days a week. We're doing 3-month movies.
Oh wow.
It was I was starting to like really question if I could actually see myself doing this, and I didn't see myself getting into any position of creativity for a long time. Like, you could easily get stuck as a technician, and all you do is just keep the cameras rolling for the creators. So I took a break, and then, but I still was like, I was still kind of like hooked on the process in a way. But I was like, I really wanted to get into a creative role. And then it was around the time digital cameras were getting really popular. So I bought a camera. A friend gave me some pirated software. I bought a book. Okay, how do I work the software? Go shoot something, bring it home, start like figuring out the software, and then just started like kind of making these little surf films, because I'd gotten shoot surfing because that's what I was into as well, and just started making little surf films. But it was mostly just like figuring out how to use the tools. Like it took me about a week to figure out how to get the footage from the camera to the computer, and I'd be like on Google, like, how do I do this? And like, it's just, I had no idea what I was doing, like zero. And like, but slowly you can kind of find the answers to everything online or through books, or like I had friends, I'd phone them like, what cable, what this, da, da, da. And and just went from there really.
And then when did you move to over to England and North Devon?
I sort of lost track. I think I've been here about 12 or 15 years full time, but I'd been coming for many years before that, but on and off just through travels. Like I'd come and work the summer. I'd always just come for the summer and work. And I came straight to North Devon. Well, I spent 2 weeks in London, and I wasn't really enjoying London. I came from South Africa. At that time, a lot of my friends were coming to London to work and then traveling. And I came into London and I was like, I couldn't see myself. I felt like a total fish out of water in London. And, so I'd heard about North Devon. An ex-girlfriend had worked in Croyde Bay at the Thatch, and another friend of mine had worked for a local clothing company called Salt Rock. And they'd always said, there's this beautiful town and beautiful beach in England. You should go check it out. So I wasn't really enjoying London. I'd actually just studied graphic design. And I'd heard about this company in North Devon called Salt Rock, run by these two South African surfers. So I phoned them up from London. I was like, I'm like from Cape Town. I've just, graphic designer. Are you looking for any designers? And they're like, maybe just send us your portfolio or something. And so like, I kind of thought, okay, that's a good excuse. I'll jump on the train. So the next day, like I got on the train, came down, knocked on the door, and I was like, I phoned yesterday. And like, what are you doing? I was like, I just want to come and say hello. And they're like, okay, well, we might have some work for you at some point. And then they took me into Croyde Bay, gave me a tent, and I was like blown away by the beauty straight away. I was just like, whoa, I had no idea this is England. Like, yeah. I was just amazed. It was a beautiful day, summer, warm. There were waves, and I was like, I didn't even have a board. I went straight to the surf shop, like bought a board, went surfing, and I met a whole lot of people. I met a whole surf community of people like my age. It was summer, everybody was working, but all everybody was talking about was like, what are you doing in the winter? And everybody had a plan for the winter. Like people were going to Indonesia or Mexico or Canary Islands. And I was just like, oh my, I've landed, like, this is my crew. Yeah. And I just fell in with it, like a whole bunch of like amazing people, and just started like getting into a cycle of, doing summer work, go off traveling in the winter, spend all the money you made in the summer, come back at the start of the next summer, broke, start again, like, live cheap. And go from there. And it was, I sort of feel like I'm still doing that. It's just, to a degree.
And like with your work, it seems like there's a bit of a theme with Big Waves and that whole scene. And would you say like, was that going over to Ireland and kind of seeing what they had to offer over there that opened that up, or? Yeah,
I think that was part of it. I think because I've always been drawn to the sort of human aspect of the kind of motivations why people do things. And I find the whole big wave scene is just, I find it really interesting. I don't want to surf those waves. I don't want to go near them, Nazare and those waves in Ireland, but I'm really intrigued why some people do. I mean, I look at a guy like Coty or Taz, or they're just normal human beings. Like they've got, they obviously train and but they don't have like, they can't hold their breath for 20 minutes or like whatever. There's something. There's something in their head, like they're just, and and I've just people just doing these incredible things. I've always been like intrigued, and I guess for me, just having a camera allows me to go and ask, I think I'm using it as a tool to try to figure out why people do stuff, and I'm just intrigued. And so the big wave thing for me is like I've always just been drawn to it. I want to be around it. I'm amazed. Like when I see big waves, I'm just spellbound. I never get bored of it. I could happily stand on the beach and film empty waves for the rest of my life. Like you know, like I love that stuff. I love being around it. I love experiencing the power. There's a point, like I like surfing, but there's a point where there's waves I definitely don't want to ride, and it's but I want to be there experiencing, and I want to see it. And I think this is the closest I'm going to get to it. And I'm really interested what allows certain individuals to cross that threshold or just put themselves in situations that I'm like, I don't want to be near it, but I want to know why you can be.
Yeah.
So I think, and being in Europe, you know, we're super lucky. We've got, you know, Ireland to the west, and, you know, Portugal, just Nazare has just opened up a whole new chapter, and you know, totally has Nazare's kind of rewritten the capabilities. Like nobody knew what people could ride waves like that.
Yeah.
And what's happened in the last like 8 years, and you know, every season the progression's getting pushed. So just being kind of having a front row seat and witnessing that, I'm like, I can't wait to get back this winter and see what's happening, and new faces coming into it. And it's just, I don't think I'll ever get bored of it. And
what are you going to be working on when you come over?
I'm going to be shooting for the 100-foot wave series.
Okay.
So I think it'll be my third season shooting on that series, which I'm absolutely loving.
And will you be based in Nazare? Or you kind of come in and out? And
I'll be based in Nazare. So it's a 5 months stretch in Nazare. The whole film, the whole series is about, you know, we kind of embed with the people we're filming. You kind of you have to be there to get all the little magical moments. Everything's fleeting. It's unscripted. There's no other way to do it than just be there and be close to it. You know, it's like, it's a long season. You know, you're up every morning before light. You shoot all day. There's a lot of people coming in and out. It's a fluid environment, but it's totally addictive. And I absolutely love it. And it's quite interesting shooting being in one location, because Nazare as a town isn't huge, but there's a whole world going on right there, and you get into the whole thing. And you know, I'm part of a team. There's a whole lot of us filming, but we don't often work together. We all just sort of have our little, you know, what our subjects that we follow around and stuff. But I love it. Absolutely love it.
And it must be, it's pretty quiet when it's not on, right? But then as soon as there is a swell, I mean, you get like 30,000 people go on top of the cliff and are watching, and almost becomes like the Colosseum of surfing or something, right? Everyone's just sort of standing on by the lighthouse, and it's unreal.
Well, it used to be quieter. I mean, the first time I started shooting, I think it was like 2014 or something, and you know, there wasn't the audience that there is now. And I mean, I've always loved that aspect, because the Portuguese people are so passionate, and the way the community, the local Nazare municipality, the council, and Portugal as a whole have embraced this big wave story that they've got on their doorstep, and they really have encouraged people. I mean, the people that set up the Nazare Big Wave project were people that worked for the council. It was an economic driver. They realized they wanted to make Nazare, they wanted to generate an income in the winter, in the quieter months, because it's a busy holiday town in summer. A lot of people from Lisbon come there, and they knew they had this amazing resource, these giant waves. No one was surfing them. Nobody even knew how to surf them. But they just, there was a couple of guys, and one guy in particular, Pedro Pisco and his friends. They were kind of a bit, you know, I'd say visionaries. They just saw into the future, and they went, you know, we can do something here. And they just worked it out. They sent out an invite to Garrett. They created an environment where, you know, people could come and surf these massive waves. And they're still doing it to this day. They've built this high performance surf center up at the beach. You know, if you need anything, like they make it happen. And they've really maximized this resource that they have. I think it's incredible. I think it's a really good template, and I'd love to see it rolled out. Everybody, you know, where people just, whatever resource you have, is just work with it and make something special and beautiful out of it. And that's what they've done. And so even seeing that journey has been really cool for me. And they're really hospitable people. Like, I've always felt at home there because of that, their culture of just like, hey, you here, we're doing this together. What do you need? Let's make it happen. And
that's cool, right? Instead of sort of like being offish and
it's like, if you need something, exactly that. It's like, I love that attitude of like let's get it done. Like, we don't know how we're going to do it, but like we'll help you do it. Like, we'll do it together. And like, nothing's a problem. It's, you know, and I really like that sort of spirit of just like, you know, okay, let's make it happen. Let's go.
Yeah. Nice, man. And any other projects coming up sort of later this year or?
No, I think my focus really is going to be on the Portuguese winter season for 100-foot wave. I've got a few little ideas in development, but it's really early days. But, you know, in my world as a freelancer, really like a 5-month stretch, that's about as far as I can think at the moment.
Yeah.
And then, but you know, as a filmmaker, I do want to move away slowly from surfing related subject matter. I don't know if it's going to happen. You sort of paint yourself into a corner with it. You know, you get hired to do it because you've done a lot of it, and you build up tools around you to allow you to do it. And so, you know, you end up doing a lot of it. But, you know, I'd like to slowly move away from it. But saying that, I'm pretty happy in this little corner for now. So
would you still do adventure related stuff? Like I've seen you've done stuff in cycling and things like that, you know, would you kind of still keep within that world? Or
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Or I'm open to explore all angles at the moment. So I think it's going to be always driven around, it's going to always center around people. You know, I love sort of meeting people and you know, and traveling, meeting people and traveling. Those are my sort of things that keep me motivated. So,
and if the story is interesting, it kind of, you know, that's it, isn't it? Right. I mean, kind of, if it's kind of got that hook with the story and
exactly. I'm at a bit of not a crossroads, but, you know, I've been shooting and directing as well. So part of me is like not sure. Sometimes I feel like I should choose a label. What am I, a cinematographer or am I a director? On 100-foot wave, I'm a cinematographer. I'm shooting on behalf of Chris Smith, the director, and Joe Lewis, the producer. So, but then Savage Waters, you know, I direct and shoot. So, I think I'm actually comfortable with now saying I'm both. But part of me is like, oh, I wonder, you know, am I doing myself, you know, a disservice, or, you know, going forward, should I just choose one and focus on that? But I realize I do enjoy doing both. And when I'm just shooting, you're concentrating on different things. You can just concentrate on the visuals and the technical stuff. And when you're directing this, you know, you've got other things like story and, you know, actually what's in front of the lens and what people are saying. And so I'm definitely going to stay, you know, sort of non-fiction is my, you know, documentaries, the where I'm comfortable at now, which also, you know, going into a bit of branded content, as long as there's an element of like real stories. I'm really, you know, sort of oversaturated with like sort of fake, you know, social media, you know, stories, and I'm just, you know, so kind of like glossy adverts that, you know, like real stories that masquerade as real stories, but it's just, you know, always, so I can't ever see myself working on things like commercials now. I just have zero interest in trying to sell toothpaste or whatever the hell that people are trying to sell in that front. But you know, working for brands, doing, you know, branded content, as long as there's, you know, there's real stories at the heart of it is. But, you know, just straight up documentaries is what I love doing, and I like working either by myself or with a really small team. Like that's kind of my comfort zone. As soon as we get too many people and it starts becoming like a management story, I'm like, you know, I start losing interest.
And if people want to get in contact, I mean, firstly, like, how can they watch Savage Waters when that comes out, or when that's sort of done, once it's out with the film festivals, and, you know, where's it going to go from there?
I think for now we don't have a plan yet past the film festival, so we're using the film festivals as a way to generate sales. I can't say too much yet because I think some ink has to dry, but I think we've had a few sort of good sort of offers on the table that are, well, you know, that are in negotiations anyway. But film festivals for now. So I'd say the best thing is to just watch our social media channels, Savage Waters, or my own, and Whipsy. And then you can see the movie. I mean, I would love people to see it on the big screen, to be honest. I feel like it was really, it's a big screen movie, especially with the sound. Can I mention the soundtrack? Because I'm so proud of our sound. Ava Waves, Anna and Ash were just added this, you know, they just came like little bolts of thunder and just brought their musical genius to it. And I'm so proud of what they did for our film. And to hear it, you know, in a big cinema setup, it's just with the sound of the waves and all this, everything like that. I'm just like, I feel like I would love people to watch it on the big screen before they start seeing it on TV. But
it doesn't do it justice when you watch it on the laptop, and you're sort of like this, and you kind of like, you just want it to be on a massive, like, surround sound. And
yeah, one of my favorite experiences was doing the sound mix with Carl Menzer, and it was because of COVID and everything, it was a remote working situation. So I sat in a studio in Lisbon, and he was in Brighton, but he was working in real time. So I had like I was sitting in a Dolby sort of surround sound room with speakers, like 360-degree speakers, and it was the first time I was seeing the visuals on a big screen. So it's like being in a cinema by yourself, but I'm chatting with Cole, and he's working, and he's saying, okay, how about a bit of more bass here? And he would add it, and then like I would hear it, and then we just went through the movie like that. And then, but just after so many months of editing on it, like, computer screen, and getting used to like, hearing very little tonal range, and even seeing very flat visuals, because we're editing in like low res proxy. So you kind of get used to like low resolution images with bad color. To suddenly be sitting in a cinema, seeing your movie come to life, like on the big screen, it was graded by then, so it had the color, it looked amazing, and hearing the sounds, I was like, whoa, like this is quite a good movie. Like, I'm like, okay.
If I just say so myself,
okay. Like this is what the, like, professionals do, This is because it's by that point, for the last cosmetics, there's a lot of other people that come on board. We had incredible colorist Eugene at Outer Limits come in Dublin, and just seeing him take your images and just add life, it was like, whoa. And then and then once the soundtrack goes in, and the sound design, and all these layers, and there's all these other people coming in, and just adding to the throwing the ingredients into the pot, and you're like, whoa, now we're talking. Awesome. Yeah,
nice. Cool. We'll definitely have to catch up when you're in Portugal, Mikey. And yeah, thanks so much, man, for coming on the show and telling us more about Savage Waters. And I encourage everyone to get out there and watch it on the big screen, not just on the laptop. It's going to be cool to see where the movie goes. And yeah, congratulations again.
Thanks, Ollie. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast. It's been a real pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Take care.